So today we're going to be talking about logarithmic functions here. So these two things right here are equivalent to each other. Let me highlight it for you. So this form and this form can be interchanged. And so a log and ln, they mean the same thing, except for their bases are different. So we'll explain that in a minute. But all you're doing is you're identifying. So like when I want to rewrite down here, the 2 is the b, the 32 is my y, and then I have the 5 is my x. And then I'm just going to color code it over here where the b and the x and the y all go. I think that was the b. Y goes over here. So what that means down here, I'm going to have 2 to the 5 equals 32. And it should be a true statement when I rewrite it. So we're just following these rules. I identified my b, my y, and my x, and then I'm going to write it in this form. B to the x equals y. So again, over here, b is 5, my x is the 0, and my y is the 1. Now in number 3, when there's nothing written here, there's an implied 10. So you go ahead and try to rewrite number 3 for me. Okay, good. So you should have written 10 to the first equals 10. Go ahead and try number 4 for me. All right, so you should have written 3 to the third equals 27. Good job. This one now we're going to write it back in the other form. So we have the log, we have it exponential, and now we want to write it with the logs. So again, the 2 is your b, this right here is your x, and that's your y. That's your b. So plugging it into your formula, we say log base 2 of 8 equals 3. So number 2 would be log base 4 of 64 equals 3. So you go ahead and try number 3, and we get log base 2 of 1/4 equals -2. So in this section down here, we're going to pretend these equal x just so that we can rewrite them and solve them without a calculator. The idea here is I'm saying 3 to what power gives me 81. If you're unsure, type in your calculator. Try 3 cubed squared. That doesn't work. Try 3 cubed. That would be 27. Try 3 to the 4th. This would come out as 81. So your answer to number 1 is 4. And that looks like a weird thing, but it is a 4 right there. Answer is 4. So number 2, we're saying 1/2, but what power gives me 8? Since it's a fraction to a whole number, I know it has to equal a negative. That's the way it's going to flip. And then I say 2 to what power gives me 8? That's 3. So if you type 1/2 to a -3 in your calculator, you will get out 8. So why don't you try to figure out what number 3 equals? So we say 4 to what power gives me 16? That's what you're thinking in your head. The correct answer you should have picked was 2. Number 5, for number 4, we say 5 to what power gives you 0.04. You might not know what 0.04 is, so you're going to want to write that as a fraction. So this is 5 to the x equals 1/25. And I said, just like on number 2, if it's a fraction and a whole number, it has to equal a negative. You're saying 5 to what power gives you 25? That's a 2. See if you can figure out number 5 and number 6 for me now. So you should have correctly said 9 to what power equals 3. That is a 1/2 power. And then 12 to the power of 1 will give you 12. So the inverse is the same as it always has been. Is you're going to flip the x and the y, and then we're going to use the properties from above up here we've been practicing the whole time in order to rewrite it. All right, so this is going to be log base 3 of y equals x, and then we're going to rewrite. And rewriting it is 3 power of x equals y, and that's your inverse function. So for number 2, it's the same. You're going to flip your x and y, but this time you need to remember that the base of ln up here, which I forgot now all of a sudden, I didn't actually point out. So when nothing was written for log, remember we made it a base 10? Well, ln is always e. There will never be anything written down for ln, but it's always an implied e down there, and ln is the natural logarithm. So I'm going to have a pretend e down here. So rewriting will be e to the x equals y plus 1. And this time I actually have to subtract my 1 over, and the inverse would be e to the x minus 1. So what is the first step on number 3? Correct, switch your x and y. This thing's working slow, sorry. And then you rewrite it 1/4 to the x equals y. Go ahead and try to solve number 4. You should get. So when I solved it here, I went ahead and rewrote it, e to the x, and then added the 2 over. So your inverse function would be y. An inverse is typically, if we say f of x equals something, this is taking forever, sorry. If you say f of x equals a function, the inverse is denoted as f to a -1. And that's just notation. This one right here would mean that it is the inverse function.